"Ma'am, you'll need to order something or give the table to a paying customer." The elderly woman looked up from the menu, but her eyes did not seem to focus on Tessa Monroe, the manager standing over her. "I only need another minute," she said. Tessa folded her arms. The Copper Lantern Café would be crowded soon, and the woman had been sitting alone at table 7 without ordering. Her black coat hung loosely from her shoulders. Her gray hair had not been brushed carefully. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen, and one hand trembled against the menu. To Tessa, she looked like someone who had come in from the cold, hoping no one would notice she had no money. "This isn't a warming shelter," Tessa said quietly. "I'm asking you to leave." At the next booth, Owen Bishop stopped cutting his daughter's breakfast in half. Owen was 40, a widowed single father who had raised 8-year-old Ruby alone since her mother died 3 years earlier. 8 months ago, he had also lost the refrigeration job he had held for 13 years. Since then, delivery shifts and small repair calls had barely kept a roof over their heads. That morning, he had $18.60 left after buying gas. The single breakfast skillet between him and Ruby was already a luxury. 2 eggs, a little sausage, potatoes, 2 pieces of toast. Owen had told Ruby he was not hungry, so she would eat without worrying. Ruby sat across from him with a yellow knitted scarf wrapped twice around her neck. She had been watching the elderly woman ever since she entered. "Dad," Ruby whispered. "She's shaking." Across the aisle, the woman slowly pushed back her chair. "I understand," she told Tessa. Her voice carried no anger, only exhaustion. She buttoned her coat with unsteady fingers and turned toward the door. Ruby looked at Owen. "She can have some of mine." Owen watched the woman take one slow step, then another. He knew what it felt like to leave a place while pretending humiliation did not hurt. "Ma'am," he called. The woman stopped. Owen pulled an empty chair toward their table. "You can sit with us." Tessa's expression tightened. "Mr. Bishop, she hasn't ordered." Owen met her eyes. "She's sitting at a table that's already paid for." The elderly woman looked from Owen to Ruby. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know." That answer made her hesitate. Owen raised his hand toward a passing server. "Could we get one more bowl, please?" Tessa stepped closer. "You cannot turn one meal into a free service arrangement. We're not asking for another meal." Owen divided the skillet carefully. He placed a small portion in Ruby's bowl, a smaller one in his own, and the rest in the empty bowl. Ruby moved one piece of toast from her plate to the woman's. Then she stood, unwound the yellow scarf from her neck, and walked around the table. "You can borrow this," she said, "until your ride comes." The woman stared at the scarf. For the first time, something broke through the numbness in her face. "My ride?" Ruby nodded seriously. "My dad says people shouldn't wait outside when it's this cold." Owen had never said those exact words, but he did not correct her. The woman allowed Ruby to place the scarf around her shoulders. It was warm from the child's neck. "Thank you," she whispered. Ruby climbed back into the booth. "My name's Ruby." The woman touched the edge of the scarf. "Beatrice." Owen pushed the bowl toward her. "I'm Owen." He had no idea that the woman wearing his daughter's scarf still controlled the company that had ruined his professional name. Beatrice looked at the small portions in front of them. "You were sharing this already." "We still are," Owen said. She noticed the water in his glass. No coffee, no second plate, no side order. She noticed how he moved the larger share of potatoes toward Ruby when the girl was not looking. "You should eat," Beatrice told him. "So should you." For several seconds, none of them moved. Then Ruby picked up her fork. "It gets cold fast." That earned the faintest smile from Beatrice. They began eating. Outside, late November wind pushed dry leaves along Maple Avenue. Inside, the cafe smelled of coffee, butter, and cinnamon. Beatrice took one bite of egg, then lowered her fork. Her eyes filled. Ruby glanced at Owen, unsure whether she had done something wrong. Owen shook his head gently. Beatrice pressed a napkin to her mouth. "I'm sorry," she said. "You don't have to be," Owen answered. She looked toward table 7, the one Tessa had forced her to leave. "My son used to sit there." Owen waited. "He loved the blueberry pancakes here," Beatrice said, "even when he was old enough to know they weren't very good." Ruby looked toward the menu. "They look good in the picture." Beatrice laughed once, but the sound collapsed into a breath. Today would have been his birthday. Owen understood. He did not ask how her son died. He did not tell her everything happened for a reason. He did not reach for a polished sentence that would make grief easier for everyone, except the person carrying it. He simply moved the napkin holder closer. Ruby touched Beatrice's sleeve. "My mom died too." Owen's hand paused on the table. Ruby rarely said it first. Beatrice looked at her. "How old were you?" "5. "I'm sorry." Ruby nodded. "Dad still makes her pancakes on her birthday." Owen looked down. "They're usually burned," Ruby added. Beatrice smiled through her tears. For the first time in 10 days, she felt something besides the silence of her own house. Then a sharp electronic alarm sounded near the counter. A display on the refrigerated dessert case flashed red. Tessa hurried over and pressed a button. The alarm stopped. Owen turned in his seat. The display still read 48 degrees. A bead of water ran from the lower edge of the case and collected on the tile. The compressor made a rough, uneven hum. Owen listened. "Tessa," he called. She looked back, already irritated. "That case needs to be checked." "It does that sometimes. The temperature is too high. It was opened during the morning delivery." Owen glanced at the fogged glass. "It's been warm longer than that." Tessa walked toward him. "You're here as a customer." "Yes." "Then let the staff handle it. I'm trying to help you handle it." Her eyes dropped to his faded delivery jacket. "What qualifies you to diagnose our equipment from a booth?" 13 years in commercial refrigeration." Tessa gave a thin smile. "And now?" Owen understood the question beneath the question. Now he delivered packages. Now he repaired washing machines in apartment basements. Now people saw the work jacket and assumed the job he had lost proved he had never deserved it. Now I'm telling you the dairy and cream products in that case need to be checked with a calibrated thermometer. Tessa shook her head. "You are not authorized to touch company equipment." "I haven't touched it." He pointed toward the condensation. "Move the perishable food to the wok. In cooler. Put a hold on anything that has been above safe temperature. Call your refrigeration contractor." "We have procedures." "Then follow them." Ruby sat very still. She had seen adults speak to her father this way before. They heard the words "delivery driver" and stopped listening to everything else. A young server named Mia stepped from behind the counter. "I can check it," she said. Tessa turned sharply. "I said it's fine." Mia looked at the display. "It says 48. Because the door was opened. Owen spoke quietly. "Check the milk near the center." Tessa stared at him, then at the customers who had begun watching. "Fine," she said. "We'll prove it's fine." Mia sanitized the probe and tested a carton of milk. She waited. 47. The room changed. Owen stood but remained several feet from the case. "Move the food. Mark the time. Don't serve anything from that unit until the contractor clears it." Tessa opened her mouth. Then the alarm sounded again. Mia began moving the products. Another employee joined her. Owen sat back down. He had not opened a panel or pretended to know the exact failure. He had recognized the warning and asked the staff to verify it. Beatrice watched him carefully. "You knew what that sound meant," she said. "I knew what it could mean." "There's a difference?" "A big one." Owen looked toward the case. "A warning tells you to stop and verify. It doesn't give you permission to guess." A man entered the café wearing a dark wool coat. He was in his late 60s, silver-haired, and visibly relieved when he spotted Beatrice. "Mrs. Kessler." Tessa froze. The man crossed the room quickly. "I'm sorry. There was nowhere to park, and I had to circle the block." "It's all right, Frank." Tessa stared at the woman in the yellow scarf. Then her eyes shifted to an old black and white photograph near the register. The photograph showed a much younger Beatrice Kessler standing beside her husband in front of the first Silver Pine Market. The name beneath it was printed in gold. Beatrice and Thomas Kessler. Founders, Silver Pine Foods. Copper Lantern Café was owned by Silver Pine Foods. Every paycheck in the building carried Beatrice Kessler's company name. "Mrs. Kessler," Tessa said. "I didn't recognize you." Beatrice looked at her for a long moment. "That was the problem." Tessa took a step forward. "I thought..." "Yes," Beatrice said. "You did." The cafe went silent. "I was trying to protect the dining experience," Tessa said. Beatrice touched Ruby's scarf. "From what?" Tessa had no answer. "From a grieving old woman sitting alone? I didn't know who you were." How many people have you sent back into the cold because you thought they couldn't afford to matter? Tessa's lips parted, but nothing came out. Beatrice did not demand that she be fired. She looked toward the refrigerated case. Preserve the camera footage from this morning. Keep the temperature logs, alarm history, and maintenance records for that unit. Tessa swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Call the licensed contractor. Document what they find. Yes, ma'am. Beatrice turned to Mia. Thank you for checking. Mia looked stunned. Frank pulled out his phone and began making notes. Owen gathered the empty bowls. You don't need to do that, Tessa said quickly. He looked at her. I know. Beatrice stood and began unwinding Ruby's scarf. Ruby reached across the table. You can keep it until you're home. Beatrice held it against her chest. Then I'll make sure it gets back to you. Owen reached into his jacket and handed her a simple business card. Owen Bishop. Appliance, repair, and refrigeration support. His phone number was printed beneath the name. Beatrice read it. Something about the name tugged at her memory, but grief had blurred the past several months into one gray corridor. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. For breakfast? Owen asked. For seeing me. Ruby smiled. We saw you because you were right there. Beatrice looked at the child. Yes, she said. I suppose I was. Frank helped her into a black sedan parked at the curb. As the car pulled away, Owen returned to the table and counted the remaining bills in his wallet. Ruby watched him. Are we in trouble? No. Did we spend too much? Owen looked at the empty skillet. We spent what we chose to spend. Ruby considered that. Was she really a billionaire? That's what the picture said. Ruby looked pleased. She still needed my scarf. Owen smiled. Yes, she did. By that afternoon, an independent contractor had inspected the refrigerated case. A failing relay had kept the unit from holding a safe temperature for nearly 2 hours. Because the food had been moved quickly, the café avoided serving products that should have been discarded and prevented a loss of almost $5,000. The contractor also found that similar alarms had been cleared 3 times in the previous month without a complete service visit. At 3:15, Beatrice sat in the back of her car, outside the home she had barely left in 10 days. Ruby's yellow scarf remained around her shoulders. The house beyond the window looked exactly as it had that morning. Curtains closed, lights off. Jonathan's unopened birthday cards still waited on the hall table because Beatrice had not been able to throw them away. Her son would have been 49. For days, visitors had entered that house with documents. Approve this. Sign that. Transfer authority. Owen had asked for an empty bowl. Beatrice called Elena Park, Silver Pine's general counsel. I need you to verify someone. Who? Owen Bishop. What am I verifying? His refrigeration credentials, his work history, anything connected to Silver Pine. There was a pause. Was he involved in the cafe incident? He prevented it from becoming worse. I'll look. And Elena? Yes? Do it quietly. 2 hours later, Elena called back. Her tone had changed. Owen Bishop worked for Silver Pine for 13 years. Beatrice sat straighter. In what division? Cold storage operations. Senior systems technician. Why did he leave? He didn't leave. He was terminated 8 months ago. Beatrice looked down at the scarf. For what? The file says insubordination and failure to support management direction. Any safety violations? No. Attendance problems? No. Previous discipline? 1 written warning, issued shortly before termination. For what? Refusing to sign a commissioning report. Beatrice felt a memory return. Months earlier, Jonathan had mentioned a technician whose name appeared in a dispute over a new cold storage facility. He had said the man might have been punished for refusing to approve something. Jonathan was already sick. A nurse had entered the room, and the conversation ended. Beatrice had never asked about it again. Who signed the termination? Elena hesitated. Caleb Stroud. Caleb was Beatrice's nephew. He had become acting chief executive after Jonathan entered the hospital. Since the funeral, he had called daily asking when she would approve the transfer of voting authority. Pull the full file, Beatrice said. I may need authorization from operations. You have mine. The next morning, Caleb Stroud entered his office on the 32nd floor of Silver Pine's Denver headquarters. He was 47, perfectly dressed, and known for making people feel as though their jobs depended on every sentence they spoke. His assistant told him legal had requested records related to Owen Bishop. Caleb stopped walking. Why? She didn't say. Who made the request? Elena Park. Caleb closed his office door. 8 months earlier, Owen had delayed the opening of a regional cold storage facility by refusing to sign the final report. The project was behind schedule. Vendors were threatening penalties. Investors had been promised an opening date. Owen had said the temperature data was not stable enough to prove the system would perform under a full load. Caleb had called it excessive caution. When Owen refused to soften his conclusion, Caleb removed him from the project, then from the company. Caleb had considered the matter finished. Until now. He called Beatrice. She answered on the 5th ring. Aunt B, I heard you went to Fort Collins yesterday. I did. You should have told security. I had Frank. You haven't been eating. It wasn't safe. The concern in his voice was smooth and practiced. I met Owen Bishop, she said. Silence. That explains the legal request. Tell me about him. He was a resentful former employee who refused to follow the chain of command. He recognized a refrigeration failure from across a restaurant. That doesn't change what happened. What did happen? He delayed a major project and undermined leadership in front of contractors. What instruction did he refuse? To revise an unnecessarily alarming report. Was the report wrong? It was incomplete. That is not what I asked. Caleb walked to the window. Aunt B, you're grieving. Bishop saw you in a vulnerable condition and attached himself to you. He did not know my name. He says that. He shared the only meal he could afford with me. That kind of gesture creates emotional leverage. His daughter gave me her scarf. Children can be persuasive. Beatrice closed her eyes. I want the full file. You have people for that. Yes, they are already working. She ended the call. That evening, Owen was replacing a washing machine drain pump in the basement of an apartment building when his phone rang. Mr. Bishop? Yes. This is Beatrice Kessler. He sat back on his heels. Did the scarf make it home? It did. It's the warmest thing in my house. Owen waited. The contractor confirmed your warning about the refrigerator, she said. I'm glad they caught it. I also learned you worked for Silver Pine. His hand tightened around the phone. I did. Why didn't you tell me? You were eating breakfast. That is not an answer. It's the answer I have. Beatrice remained quiet. Owen wiped grease from his fingers with a rag. I didn't help you because of your company. I didn't know it was your company until your driver walked in. And after you knew? I wasn't going to discuss my personnel file in front of my daughter. I would like to hear what happened. With your lawyer present? Yes. At your headquarters? At Elena Park's office in Fort Collins. Neutral location. The meeting will be documented. Owen considered it. He had spent 8 months avoiding Silver Pine, avoiding former co-workers, avoiding the building where security had watched him pack 13 years of his life into a cardboard box. What do you want from me? He asked. The truth. And if it embarrasses your company, then the company should be embarrassed. Owen looked at the broken pump on the floor. He thought about Ruby asking whether they would need to move again. He thought about the applications that asked whether he had ever been fired for cause. I'll be there. 2 days later, Owen entered Elena Park's office wearing his cleanest work shirt. Beatrice was already seated at the conference table. Ruby's scarf lay folded beside her. Elena sat across from them with a laptop and a recorder. This is a fact, finding meeting, Elena said. It is not a job offer, a settlement, or a promise of corrective action. Owen nodded. I understand. Elena reviewed his employment history. 13 years. No safety violations. Strong performance reviews. Promoted twice. Then came the North Range Cold Storage Project. A subcontractor had installed lower-cost components instead of the models named in the design. Owen did not claim the replacements were automatically dangerous. His objection was simpler. The test results did not prove the system could hold stable temperatures under a full operating load. What did you recommend? Elena asked. Use the specified components or repeat the full test for 72 hours. What was Caleb's response? He said the facility had an opening date, and I was turning an engineering question into a moral performance. And you? I understood the deadline. Owen looked at Elena. I also understood my name would be on the certification. Elena opened a scanned report. This is the final document in your personnel file. Owen read the conclusion. That isn't my report. How is it different? I wrote that the stability data was insufficient. This says the variation was within expected conditions. Did you make that change? No. Did you authorize it? No. Beatrice's face went still. What happened after you refused to sign? She asked. I was removed from the project. 2 weeks later, I was fired. Did you appeal? Yes. And? I was told management had acted within its discretion. Beatrice studied him. What did it cost you? Owen looked away. That isn't part of the technical record. It is part of the truth. He hesitated. Then he told them. He lost his health insurance. He sold his truck to stay current on rent. The termination language made other industrial employers cautious. He moved Ruby out of the duplex where she had lived since her mother died and into a smaller apartment. Does Ruby know why? Beatrice asked. She knows I changed jobs. That is all? She's 8. Owen leaned back. I wasn't going to turn my daughter into the audience for a fight between adults. Elena stopped the recorder. I need to search Jonathan's archived review files. Beatrice's breath caught at her son's name. Why? Before he entered the hospital, Jonathan asked legal to preserve records connected to contractor substitutions and maintenance reductions. His review was never finished. The archive was found the following morning. Inside were Owen's original test data, photographs of the substituted parts, and an email from Caleb. The language needs to reflect business judgment, not technician anxiety. Adjust the conclusion and keep us on schedule. Elena also found a short note from Jonathan. Bishop's termination requires independent review. The technical record does not support the personnel conclusion. Beatrice read it twice. Her son had not finished the investigation, but he had seen enough to question what the company had done. The board was scheduled to consider Caleb's permanent appointment on Monday. Beatrice looked at Elena. They received this before they vote. Caleb learned about the archive before the weekend. On Saturday morning, he met privately with Tessa in the café office. Tessa had already received written notice that her treatment of Beatrice was under review. She was frightened and ashamed. Caleb placed a draft statement on her desk. This gives legal the full context. Tessa read it. The statement said Owen had interfered with company equipment, disrupted service, and used the incident to approach Beatrice. That isn't what happened, Tessa said. You told him not to touch the case. He didn't touch it. He influenced staff actions. He told Mia to check the temperature. And food was removed because of him. The contractor said the case was failing. Caleb leaned closer. The board will be deciding whether your judgment can still be trusted. A complete statement could help them understand the pressure you were under. Tessa looked at the paper. It was not a direct threat. It did not need to be. I need time, she said. You do not have much. He left the statement on her desk. On Sunday, Elena reviewed the cafe footage. The images were clear. Owen never touched the case. Tessa silenced the alarm. Mia performed the temperature check. Employees moved the food after the reading confirmed the problem. The footage also showed Beatrice sitting with Owen and Ruby before Frank revealed her identity. When Elena interviewed Tessa, the manager began by repeating Caleb's version. Halfway through, she stopped. He wanted me to make Bishop sound dangerous. Did he threaten you? Elena asked. Not directly. What did he say? That the board would decide whether my judgment could still be trusted. Tessa pushed the draft statement across the table. I was wrong about Mrs. Kessler. I'm not signing another wrong thing to protect myself. Monday's board meeting began at 9 o'clock. It had originally been scheduled to discuss Caleb Stroud's appointment as permanent chief executive. Instead, Elena opened with a motion to revise the agenda. Caleb sat at the far end of the table. Beatrice sat at the center. For the first time since Jonathan's funeral, she wore something other than black. Ruby's yellow scarf rested around her neck. Elena presented the evidence in order. Owen's original test data, the altered conclusion, Caleb's email, the disciplinary action that began after Owen refused to sign, Jonathan's note, the cafe footage, Tessa's draft statement, and her account of Caleb's pressure. Caleb remained controlled. This is being framed without operational context, he said. The facility opened successfully. The system was adjusted. No product was lost. No one was injured. A board member named Harold Price leaned forward. Was the system adjusted before or after Bishop refused to certify it? Caleb paused. After additional testing. Then his objection was valid. His concern was addressed. After he was removed? Caleb's jaw tightened. He was not terminated for raising a concern. He was terminated for how he raised it. Harold gestured toward Owen. Owen had been invited only to answer technical questions. He wore the same clean work shirt from the meeting in Fort Collins. Mr. Bishop, was the original system proven unsafe? No. Was it proven stable under full operating load? No. What did you refuse to sign? A statement saying the data showed stable operation. Why? Because it didn't. Caleb turned toward him. You could have respected the chain of command. I used the appeal process. You challenged executive judgment in front of contractors. I answered a commissioning question in front of the people performing the commissioning. You delayed a $9 million facility. The system delayed the facility. The room fell silent. Caleb's face hardened. You always believed your technical opinion outweighed the needs of the company. Owen looked at him. Refusing to certify something unproven wasn't disloyalty. He paused. It was the job. Elena displayed the draft statement Caleb had given Tessa. This was created after legal reopened Mr. Bishop's file. Caleb glanced toward the door. Tessa misunderstood my request. Did you ask her to state that Owen interfered with the equipment? Elena asked. I asked for a complete account. Did you review the footage first? No. Did you suggest her employment depended on how the board viewed her judgment? Caleb did not answer. Beatrice finally spoke. You told me Owen used my grief to attach himself to me. I was protecting you. No. Her voice was quiet. You were protecting the story you had already chosen. Caleb leaned forward. Aunt B, you met a former employee while you were grieving. You are allowing one breakfast to influence corporate governance. Beatrice touched the yellow scarf. The breakfast did not create the evidence. She looked at Jonathan's note on the screen. It made me willing to see it. The board entered executive session. Owen waited in an empty conference room. He did not know whether his record would be corrected. He did not know whether the company would offer anything beyond regret. His phone vibrated. A message from Ruby appeared on the screen. Did the truth win yet? Owen stared at the words. Then he typed, they're still listening. 23 minutes later, Elena entered. The board has suspended Caleb Stroud from all executive authority pending an independent investigation. Owen nodded slowly. What about the CEO appointment? Removed from consideration. And my file? Your termination is now listed as disputed pending final review. Compensation and benefits will be evaluated after the investigation. Owen looked at her. That isn't the same as clearing my name. No, Elena said. It is the beginning. 6 weeks later, the independent investigation confirmed that Caleb had interfered with technical reporting, retaliated against Owen, concealed contract substitutions from the board, and pressured Tessa to provide a misleading statement. The board terminated his employment. He lost his succession bonus and any chance of becoming chief executive. His remaining financial and contractual issues were transferred to outside counsel for review. Owen's personnel record was formally corrected. Silver Pine acknowledged that his objection had been valid and that his dismissal had been retaliatory. A negotiated agreement restored his lost compensation, benefits, and retirement contributions. Beatrice offered him a senior executive position. Owen declined it. He did not want gratitude to place him in a role he had not earned. Instead, he accepted a 30-day independent assessment contract. He reviewed maintenance records at 3 facilities and presented his recommendations to a hiring panel that included no member of Beatrice's family. At the end of that process, Silver Pine offered him a position suited to his experience. Regional Maintenance Integrity Supervisor. It did not make him rich. It gave him stable hours, health insurance for Ruby, and work that allowed him to sign his own name without compromising what it meant. Tessa also faced consequences. She received a formal warning, lost her management duties during retraining, and was required to complete a review on customer treatment and food safety procedures. Caleb had pressured her, but he had not made her judge Beatrice by her coat. That choice had been hers. She cooperated with the investigation and apologized without asking for immediate forgiveness. On Caleb's final day at Silver Pine, He returned his access card and collected the last of his files. Owen was leaving Elena's office when they met in the corridor. Caleb looked older without the authority he had spent years trying to secure. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Caleb said, "I thought you were trying to embarrass me." "I was trying not to sign a false report. I know that now." Owen waited. Caleb glanced toward the closed boardroom doors. "The person I treated like an obstacle was the person protecting the company." Owen's expression did not change. "Knowing it doesn't repair it." "No. What you do next might." Caleb nodded. He did not ask for his job back or demand forgiveness. He continued cooperating with the audit and surrendered the records investigators requested. Beatrice slowly returned to public life. The grief did not disappear. She still woke some mornings reaching for the phone before remembering Jonathan would never call. But she began visiting Owen and Ruby. At first, only for dinner. Then for Ruby's school music program. Then for a Saturday science fair where Ruby built a cardboard model of a refrigerated truck and proudly announced that warm milk was bad business and also gross. Beatrice laughed harder than anyone in the room. One evening, she sat at Owen's kitchen table repairing a loose seam in the yellow scarf. "Grandma B, you missed a spot," Ruby said. The room became quiet. Ruby looked up. "Is that okay?" Beatrice's hands stopped moving. "Yes," she whispered. "That is very okay." Silver Pine restored the community meal program Jonathan had once supported. Customers experiencing hardship could request food discreetly. No one had to explain their situation in front of a crowded room. No one was filmed for advertising. No employee was allowed to turn a person's hunger into company publicity. A small brass bowl was placed near the register at every Copper Lantern Café. Customers could contribute privately, and Silver Pine matched the donations each month. The first bowl was installed at the Fort Collins location. Several months after the morning that changed all three of their lives, Owen, Ruby, and Beatrice returned to the café. The wind outside was sharp, but the sky was clear. Tessa greeted them at the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Kessler." "Good morning, Tessa." Tessa looked at Owen, Mr. Bishop, then at Ruby. "I like your scarf." Ruby smiled. "It's warm." They sat at table 7. Owen ordered 3 full breakfasts, blueberry pancakes for Beatrice, eggs and toast for Ruby, coffee and a skillet for himself. When the food arrived, Ruby looked at the portions and grinned. "This is way more than last time." Owen nodded. "Things are better." Ruby glanced toward the brass community bowl near the register. A folded card beside it read, "No one should have to prove they deserve a warm meal." She slipped out of the booth and returned carrying an empty bowl. Owen raised an eyebrow. "What's that for?" Ruby placed it in the center of the table. "In case somebody needs it." Beatrice touched the yellow scarf around her shoulders, the same scarf a little girl had given her when no one knew her name. A few minutes later, an older man entered alone. His coat was thin. His hands were red from the cold. He stood near the register, studying the prices without sitting down. Ruby looked at Owen. Owen looked at Beatrice. Beatrice lifted the empty bowl. Then she waved the man toward table 7.